My name is Jasmine Boschai, and I've been a design professor at Seneca Polytechnic in Toronto, Canada for about 15 years, which is a really long time. I started as a student in the Interactive Media Design, or I&M program, which is actually the program that I teach in now, and I'm the coordinator of the program also. So I was a student of the program back when it was called Digital Media Arts. I started teaching soon after, while working as a motion graphic designer and then a digital illustrator. And then I started my own business first with making greeting cards, illustrator greeting cards. And then I got into making baby clothing and then natural bath and body products. So you see the interest here, right? My own company's ethos was sustainability. I wanted everything to be as sustainable and organic as it could be. My clothes were a blend of organic bamboo and organic cotton, and everything was sourced locally, except the thread, because we don't really have bamboo forests in Canada. So my fabric was knit within driving distance from my house. I used an interlock and a jersey weave. And then it was dyed and finished at a family-owned and operated dye house. When looking for organic dyes versus regular chemical dyes, I discovered at the time, and maybe it's changed now, that the organic dyes had about 12 colors to choose from. And since I didn't bleach my fabric, which was actually a requirement for the dyes to be more vibrant and to show their actual colors, the colors would have resulted in a really dull and muted tone, and the organic dyes used more water than the chemical dyes. So this is the point where I had to choose, would my clothes be sustainable or organic? They couldn't be both. So I ended up choosing sustainability. So fast forward to the present, I'm currently teaching a course in in user experience design, or UX design. So the course is basically a studio simulation where the students follow a prescribed UX process. And the end results, so at the end of the course, they have to create an app. I've created two fictional startup clients. One is called Dairy Drop. They're a milk delivery service, and their vision is to bring back the milkman from the 1950s. The other one is a highly innovative and sustainable company that recycles human waste into cosmetics. Yes, I got the expected reactions, right? Which is really entertaining for me. The name is Nature's Cycle. Yes, great. I told my students that Nature's Cycle is fictional, with the hopes that they'll consider that this is a serious possibility in the world that we live in and moving forward, right? In the world that we could be living in. I want them to consider what can be done with all of the waste humans create, not just the gross stuff. So as designers, we're not only creating pretty pictures, but we develop solutions. So in fact, designers are problem solvers. I want my students to consider sustainability with design, their own ideologies as designers, and that even seemingly outrageous ideas should be seen as possibilities. So I got this company idea from an article on It's Nice That, which featured the amazingly beautiful, sustainable, and clean, no pun, the design of AIZOME WASTECARE.
Yeah.
Yes, students, it's actually not a completely fictional company. So about you, tell us about you. Who are you? What do you do? When did you start? Where are you located? All the details.
My name is Michael. I'm originally from Munich in Germany, and I spent a lot of my 20s traveling and working in different countries. And eventually I lived a lot in Asia as well. And I eventually lived a decade in Japan. And I started my professional work I would say, like, I guess like your students, I would say I'm more like a creative design person. I always like to make things with my hands. And I started working though in a completely different field, which was a medical engineering company. And that was more because I actually didn't want to do anything serious at all. I didn't want to work at all And it was only, I think, when I hit the end of my 20s and my mom got very sick with unfortunately a terminal cancer, that I had a sort of desire to do something useful. And there was a sort of startup company that I just came across that did amazing products, and that's where I basically started. And it was sort of a in-house consulting job, which was good because I learned a lot how to use Excel sheet and how, I don't know, companies calculate prices, and it was very businessy, but the purpose seemed to me very like a very good company. You know, that was basically they were looking at how to treat you know, late stage cancers, you know, how the radiotherapy plans can be changed. There was lots of smart people, and was always honored that I could work in a company, and nobody noticed that I'm not so smart. But it was a very good way of like seeing sort of an intersection between a very sort of a very, I would say, a very businessy world and still a world in which, you know, creativity was very important. But I also wanted to, you know, eventually just I realized I wanted to be, you know, more creative as in doing something myself. And but I felt like, okay, I want to have an actual problem that is sort of has an application in the real world, and I want to find something that people use and it solves a problem for somebody. And at that point, I also felt, in terms of the medical world, we put so much effort on curing disease. Like it's a big money maker. You know, if you're really sick, you'll pay anything to get healthy again. But prevention, we don't really pay money for prevention, and you know, there's a lot of disease that are avoidable. You know, they say about 70 to 80% of cancers, for example, are from lifestyle choices and not, you know, your genetic predisposition. You know, that cancer develops. And there's so a lot of other, especially autoimmune diseases, have something to do with the chemicals in our environment. And, you know, I think that's something the older you get, is, you know, illness becomes a more serious thing. You know, that we're mostly spared from this. And when we are young, the younger we are, they're relatively less exposed to this. So anyway, this was something where I just felt like, you know, there would be something I want to do and just find a way to make it work. And the initial impetus came when my mother was undergoing this chemotherapy. She, like, her skin reacted really badly to textiles. And, you know, that was basically how her autoimmune system was just, you know, not able to do, you know, its work properly anymore. And then the doctor said, oh, just switch out the clothes, especially, you know, the bed sheets, for something that's undyed or light colors. And it was like literally when I heard this, I was like, you know, like, how would this even, like, what is color even made of? Like, it didn't even occur to me that like color could be something, as if color was not an ingredient, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's actually, as I would say, from a design perspective, often very interesting, is that we don't think of what goes into making something. Like, you literally take a t-shirt, you see, oh, it says 100% cotton, and you stop thinking, rather than going like, hang on, you know, why is it black? What is what is the black? What is the ingredient that makes the cotton black? And why is it not on the label? That's a whole other question for, you know, lawmakers. Actually, there's nothing on the label that's actually, other than the fiber and the country of origin. Yeah. And so that's basically, there was, for me, something that I found it's very, very interesting. And the more I read about it really over the years, I also went like, hang on, this is a huge problem. I mean, the color in our clothes is 20% of the global drinking water pollution. And there's a large percentage of people that react to textile, to the colors in textile specifically. I think 79% of all people that have sensitivity towards textiles, specifically actually the dyes. And then, you know, I just couldn't believe when I was like, you know, kind of Googling basically late at night, like, what is color actually made of? And I always basically came up, well, it's basically made of petrochemicals. The majority are like waste products from the petrochemical, oil and coal tar industry. And it's often, you put heavy metals in there, and it's in itself very poisonous, but you can just wash basically the effluent color out. And that to me just seemed like such an archaic process, and just a process that's so based on, the consumer not knowing what's in there, having an abundant supply of water, being able to produce it in a country that has different environmental regulations than the West. So that to me it became more and more like something I realized that is an actual problem that has real world consequences. And I started also, looking up people and calling them, either professors or, factory owners and so on, just to understand more what was going on. And sometimes it's a life hack, I think, that's very good for students, and I keep using this, is to just call and just say I'm student and want to know something. And then people are always happy to help you. So I kept calling like factories, literally from China, Japan, Switzerland. Like I just called lots of people up and just trying to understand, if this is a problem, and if there are other solutions. And that was sort of the initial start of the idea to make. I mean, it's not an innovation. Plant dyes have been used for a really long time. Like it's been used for thousands of years. I think the innovation was, for us, is basically to say, hey, 120 years ago, more or less, we went into another route, which was the oil industry was like really exploding, and this was like a waste product that was just there, and it was easy to use, and you don't have to import plants. It's a much easier process than doing plant dyes. And there was absolutely no concern for the environment or health. I mean, not no concern, but like very small. Like people weren't really aware. There were some people who were like really against that in the, warning against using all these dyes. And there's always been cases of colors that just got too poisonous that people like died. I think Paris green is a color that.
Yeah, the emerald. There's a green. I know I remember watching a Dumb Ways to Die show.
Yeah. The Shields green or Paris green was a color. But I mean, there's been other colors too. Radium was used for whites, for whitening, for toothpaste, and carbon, what's it called? Carbon oxide, I think was used in the 60s a lot on like dishes and plates. So like we've been using toxic color for a long time. But what we always want, what they're always trying to make the toxicity so low so it doesn't become let's say an apparent problem. The thing about like accumulation is just really difficult to know where your cancer comes from. Like it's just, it accumulates in your body and then you don't really know anymore, and it's really hard to prove. So like long story short, for me, like that seemed to be a worthwhile challenge to do that. And you ask about waste care. So waste care is basically, we've taken the idea and turned it around, and we wanted to, because when this is a plant dyed sweater, but you can't tell on a video call that this was made without any water waste. So we're always like, how can we show this? And then we basically had the idea to just take our wastewater and then put it into bottles and make it into skin lotion, because that's when you work with plants, when you dye with plants, and you do it really purely with plants without adding any mordants, is the name of the chemical used to bind the color and the fiber. Then you don't basically you have clean wastewater that can be used to fertilize fields. There's just nothing in there that is not organic. And since there are a lot of studies on how good indigo is for your skin, we thought like, hey, we can take the indigo wastewater, and it is definitely going to be a good cosmetic product. And we just put it into bottles, and we basically send it to celebrities and influencers, and we also submitted to a lot of award shows, as an idea. Maybe you can show your students the video.
79% of skin diseases worldwide are caused by toxic chemicals used in textile production. Japanese textile startup AIZOME has developed a method to produce textiles that are not only harmless, but even come with additional health benefits. And because only plants, water and ultrasound are used, even the wastewater is good for you. Introducing WasteCare. Industrial waste certified as skincare.
Did you send it to Red Dot? Did you apply for a Red Dot?
We did not do Red Dot. We did the Cannes Line Festival.
Yes.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was in July. And
Did you win that one or?
Well, gold.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, and then London International Awards.
Yeah, I saw the advertisement for it. Yeah, I found it when I found it on It's Nice that it showed the ad, and it talks about the industrial waste, and you think of industrial waste when you hear that as like this awful, like chemically, metallic chunks floating in your water. I don't even know how else to put it, right? And then turning that into a skincare just seems like this innovative, solution. But really, I guess with the combination of the AIZOME way of dyeing the textiles, which is, I guess, essentially it's just using natural colors.
Yeah, it's just using basically plants. You just use plants and you transfer the colors of the plants into the pigments into the fiber. Yeah.
Wow. So then really the waste, even though it is industrial because it's large scale and, it's really not terrible,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Industrial usually just means this, just really means the scale of how it doesn't have to be poisonous. There, you can do hand dyeing at home with poisonous colors.
Yeah.
Like
Tie-dye.
Yeah, a little tie-dye.
Boiling some fruits and vegetables to make your own dyes.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that's something I think for your students that's really important is that if you are creative and, for example, let's say you're creative cooking, you go into the kitchen, just see what ingredients do I have and what can I cook from it. I think that's really satisfying. Is my favorite thing to cook. But even anything else, like you go into your workshop and just see what materials do I have and what can I do to make something. It's more difficult when you design something because you're not visually aware of like what waste products are out there in the world, like what is there cheaply, like it kind of requires, and then of course also there's way more, right? There's just so much, but it requires you to go to like trade shows and speak with people and see maybe also in other industries, like what, especially if you do something new, like for example, we've just recently become aware of a certain waste product that's really out there in abundance and we could potentially use for dyeing from the wine industries in Europe. And I think that's something to be the industry follows basically the logic of the market. Like they're trying to see what can we buy, what's the cheapest that we can buy, and then that's often how cheap is it and how feasible it is, and there's nothing wrong with that, but like that's basically how a lot of like products are made, right? And if you always use virgin products to make things, that the things would be expensive, there's way more waste. So there's a lot of opportunity to save is just by combining materials differently and and then really challenge yourself and see like, well, is this just marketing? Does this just sound better, or would this on a large scale actually be better for the world? It's a complicated process, also humbling, because sometimes some things sound really great, but then they don't make so much sense on an industrial scale. And then you have to think, well, then maybe it's just not going to be an industrial scale product, and it's also okay. But I think that's one thing where I often made the mistake to just like be too much in love with my own idea. It's like, oh, that's really cool. It's like the world should adopt it, but just go like step back and like, does this really work? And like on scale, like for example, there's one thing that I want to throw in here as well, is often the idea of making things locally is great and sounds great, but then you go like, well, does this really work locally? Could we actually supply this to enough people if we do this locally? And then if you, for example, you look at carbon emissions or other things, then you have to ask the question to, is this really an issue if we import this? Like, is this really, is this creating more carbon? So, and that's actually very tricky and complicated. And I think it's important to remain humble there and just to, maybe sometimes see that some products are not as bad as you thought they are, and some things are not as good as they are. And in the conversation that we have to keep going. So anyway, that's been my journey. And right now, you ask where I am. I'm right now in Japan. Mount Fuji is on the other side of this room here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now you're in Japan, but you're based in Munich, right? Yeah.
But basically, yeah, our company is small. At the moment, we are 5 people, and we work on a sometimes on-site, sometimes off-site model. So for this month, we're all somewhere in the world. And in next month, for 8 weeks, we'll all work from Thailand.
Wow, that's amazing. So how did you connect with the people that you work with?
So Megan. Megan used to be a customer who wrote lots of asked us a lot of questions. We thought like, oh, this customer asks very good questions.
Yeah. And Megan's in Chicago. That's where she lives, right?
Yeah, no, Megan is in, I think at that time she was in New York.
Oh, okay.
At that time in New York. So our headquarters is really in Chicago, but we don't have, at the moment, nobody works from Chicago, but if you send us a letter, I guess send it to Chicago. So and yeah, that's Megan. Then we have our like general counsel she's a professor at Boston University. So she's basically a friend of Megan's and or a friend of Megan's. Yeah, she's also very in this field of toxicological consumer product lawsuits and so on. And for us, we are trying to, we're trying to walk the line of like be sustainable, but we don't really talk so much about sustainability because that word is really claimed by a lot of companies that are not sustainable. So we trying to, not talk so much about sustainability, but about actual measurable health effects our products have. And yeah, so then, then we've got a lot of it is through, introductions. We do have people apply sometimes, but yeah, as we grow slowly, we can't always accept everybody who's applying. But I think for me, it's really important that people are motivated. I've never checked any university degree or anything. To me, that doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's all about your interests and what you know and how you can help and aligning yourself. It's the values, right? Yeah. That's amazing. How was this process discovered or developed? Just the AIZOME process that you use, and then, it seems now that you're talking about it, seems like cosmetics were just almost like a natural progression, like the obvious second step.
So the plant dyeing is literally 10,000 of years old, and a lot of people have heard about plant dyeing. But what has been discovered by people who've been, dyeing a long time, through the ages, is that you don't not only bring color into textile, but you often also bring medicinal or other properties into textiles. So, for example, the samurais, if you look at all block prints, they used to wear these blue shirts under their armor. So if they get hit by an arrow or injured by a sword, the people observed that the wounds would heal faster if they wear these like blue shirts. And today we understand that's because indigo is highly antibacterial and may remain this antibacterial property. And so there's like dozens of other plants that have like similar health effects that we either fully understand or we don't fully understand, but we can observe them. And so the only issue is that without the use of a mordant or a chemical binder that often kind of like negate this like medicinal effect, that the color and also these medicinal properties fade quickly. So this makes it problematic for, it makes it neither sustainable, not kind of ready for the mass market. And we were looking at different technologies that we could use to basically travel back in time and just say like, okay, we are in the year 1910, and how do we make plant dyes a better, more color fast process, rather than what most companies are doing right now. It's like, we're in 2023, how do we make our dyes less polluting? So, but instead of like saying, hey, we have, you know, this really complex, because like, also that's one thing too, you know, our production or world of flight is extremely complicated. I think all your designers will understand. You can take any product in the room behind you, and it's an extremely complicated design process, because you're standing on the shoulders of people who stand on other shoulders, and there's a lot of knowledge that goes with these things. And it becomes sometimes really difficult to go back to the origin. And
It was just simple and just so straightforward, right?
Yeah.
And the
And
answer is there sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's also really a job that young people can do way better than older people, is to just ask why, until the elders get exhausted and say, I don't know anymore. That's just how it is. Asking a question.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, I think that is what we did. And I think what's important for a lot of other things. And it's a really important job to just go back. Well, why do we even have to use? Because like the question for me is, why do we have to use colors made from petroleum? Like, why? I mean, it's clearly there's been other colors there. And then, you know, it's because of the price, of the availability, of the flexibility, you know, and of the consumers don't care. And, you know, and then also regulation. I can dye, and this is a standard operation procedure, because I still think it's so crazy, is I can take an organic t-shirt, and it's organic and everything and great, and I'll dye it with a substance that is made from petroleum and coal tar. And then on the label, I just write 100% organic t-shirt. Feel great about yourself. You bought an organic product. And I can sell it, and it's totally fine. The consumer doesn't know. It's cool with regulation. And, you know, that's, I think, also a why. Why is this? Why do we expect, like our food or so many other cosmetics, we expect them to write every little ingredient on there, but textiles we don't.
Yeah, it's true.
You will, if you ask why, you'll feel people get exhausted and can't explain it anymore, other than just saying that's just how it is. And
yeah,
because you know, we shouldn't, you know, if we just accept everything as it is and we don't challenge it, we don't develop as a civilization. So I think that's why it's important to go back, and that's kind of our story. And we didn't invent this. This was been done for thousands of years, and my wife and me had one of our first dates in, we went to a plant dyer in Japan and did our own t-shirt.
Oh, romantic.
So romantic, yeah. And we did our own clothes, and I thought like, this is so cool. Like, you'll go in there with your hand, the dyers tell you just, you know, put off your gloves, just go in there with your hands, feel the color, it's alive. And, you know, it is a little bit smelly, but it is like a, you know, a fermentation, but it's a little bit like cheese making, or like fermentation in a beer brewery. Like, it's just a very alive process, and it's very interesting. And that kind of, to me, was at that time, I kind of went back to this moment with my mother in the speaking with the doctor, when he said, you know, we got to switch out for non-dyed textiles, because of the poisonous, you know, because color being can irritate skin because they're poisonous. And then I was like, why are we not using this process? And, you know, I got
that
into
was your light bulb moment, right? That's
literally I was like, hang on, like,
it's amazing you can pinpoint that moment where you were like, and then the ball started rolling, right? So in the end, the main idea is skin. And of course, now that you're talking about it again, it just makes perfect sense. Of course, yeah, right. It's all about skin and us and sustainability. And yeah, everything that's made today is just like cheap, or
I mean, that's definitely one thing that I learned in my business world, is like, it's not done out of evil or bad intention, but it's like people with big Excel sheets, just you know, calculating everything. you know, and sometimes I'm jokingly say it's like a 26-year-old McKinsey guy who's just like, you know, comes up with his Excel sheet and said, hey, you know, turns out nobody knows what plant color is anyway. It'll cost you a cent more to make it with plant color, but you can actually also use synthetic color. It's all regulation, all fine. You can do this. And if you save a cent in production on your t-shirt, for you, that would mean millions of dollars every year. And then everybody's happy. So I think we just follow the logic. People follow the logic of the market, and companies aren't, you know, evil per se. They just follow, you know, logic.
Yeah.
And the problem definitely is, you know, that this is the regulation, that the regulations are like that. You can produce them somewhere else or whatever.
Yeah.
And also that people don't mind.
Yeah. They're just like, well, I've been okay up until now, so right. So so I wanted to go back to your skincare line for a second here. So what items, or what do you sell? What's part of the skincare line?
Yeah.
And I know you said it's not in the market now. You said that it's something that it was like
So WasteCare is the idea to turn things around and make something visible that's invisible. Like we always are part of you know, these processes, and we wear things that, you know, are made of waste products from other industries. And like I mentioned this I think twice already, is most colors are basically using the waste products from the petroleum industry, where, you know, split up petroleum, and you have then these different chemicals, and these are available in abundance, and, you know, can be used fantastically to color plastic or to make plastic, and also to make things like dyes.
but with
And
yours it's all medicinal, right? All of
and we basically, we also have waste after you dye the textiles. Eventually the color of the vats become inactive, and then you know, basically can throw the water out, and you can throw it on the fields, or basically fertilizer. And we thought, hey, we could package this and make this into skincare product, but we, instead of just making it like a, you know, like something like, you know, like a organic, we just make it a really fancy, crazy, luxurious looking brand, but we still call it WasteCare.
Yeah, and you know, from a designer's perspective, it's just like amazing to look at. Not only that, but it's just completely, you know, sustainable. The packaging itself, the presentation of it just makes you want to, you know, open it, and like, wow, it's just so designy, right? It's fantastic. It's beautiful. So you just, so I guess it's just the little vials. And do you have, I think I noticed it was what was it, a night cream or something, or like a night serum? I guess they're all serums, right? How did you find the designer, the packaging designer, and the designer to develop your packaging?
That was my tip for anybody, is I found him in a bar and we were drinking.
Really?
Yes.
There you go.
That's how a lot of things get done.
Germany or in Japan? Where did you find them?
In Germany. So the head of this team is a German German guy, a few years younger than me, and he has done a lot of like award-winning designs. And he's like basically said, you know, they always do advertisement for whatever companies that can pay them, and he basically said, you know, he would like to support us and work for us without pay, without a lot, and to help us to make this into a compelling message.
Wow.
It's really like, you know, people forget that, like, you know, everybody wants to have fun while they're doing something. Yes, everybody wants to have fun while they're doing something, and it's important to work with people that you like, and then, you know, you find this out not so much in meetings than in like actually social settings. And that's
what I tell my students too. I say, hey, don't forget, these people want to know that they can have lunch with you. So how many do you have? Or what's the plan, if there's a plan?
We've done, I don't know exactly the number, but within 1,000 or a few thousand. And we've, you know, we've sold them, and we've given them to like journalists and
Yeah,
influencers, designers, and we are now talking with two different brands to continue this, because we would like to continue the idea.
yeah.
So if you know somebody, and you can always introduce them to us to continue this as like as an actual production. And yeah, I think that's the plan is. I mean, you can also extend this. I mean, we do have other dyes available right now. We only use indigo. Indigo is really known as a skin portion. It really, and it works really well if you have skin irritations. So you apply indigo and it really helps healing. We've actually conducted a study with researchers from the University of Cambridge on like skin topically applied. I mean, this is sort of uncontroversial. There's also, you can use Urubia or others that are help with blood circulation, and there the studies are a little bit thinner. I mean, that's often with Chinese medicine or Indian Ayurvedic medicine.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've heard of indigo used in Chinese medicine for psoriasis, to treat psoriasis.
Yeah, and so exactly. And then with a lot of like Ayurvedic or Chinese medicine is, if you come in with a very Western scientific viewpoint, you see like, okay, how does this actually work? And you can observe that it works, but the mechanisms are often not fully understood. So we did this study with the, I mean, we basically funded the study, and these researchers conducted it independently. But we could basically prove that it's extremely wound healing, even better than, for example, I think Bepanthen is like a wound healing thing used in hospital. So we could say it's always on par, and sometimes even better than Bepanthen if it's applied as a skin lotion. And we tried to publish it in like we wanted to publish it in like Nature, right? Bam, right away. But they were like, yeah, that's awesome, but what's the mechanism? How does it work? I know we just don't know exactly how it works. We think that's something to do with a molecule called tryptanthrene that seems to be the one that does the wound healing, but how it actually works is not fully understood. That's so there's
more testing, I guess, right? More
yeah. Yeah, and there's there's also something I think for designers. There's a lot of things we don't know yet. There's a lot of things to discover, a lot of things that work and people don't know why it works. And yeah, anyway.
Yeah. So what are your future plans moving forward? What's the plan from here on out? Will there be a retail line of these cosmetics?
So cosmetics, we either continue ourselves, which is not a plan A at the moment, but we think cosmetics is a great partnership to work with cosmetics, because we we have this natural ability to provide the resource and also to tell a story. And cosmetics has an advantage to textiles that it's a step or two ahead in the customer awareness of the sustainability and more natural ingredients. A lot of cosmetic products that say, oh, this is done without animal testing or vegan or only from natural ingredients. And we don't have this in textiles yet. Like in textiles, people don't think, they don't think twice about what's in there. So we like
organic or I guess
so
that's about it, right? Organic, local, sustainably sourced. Yeah, there's not many options, I guess, for textiles.
Most of the of the slogans so in textiles are very vague, right? If they say majority locally sourced, and like what's not locally sourced. And then it's true, because as you noticed, you mentioned this in your intro, like if you want to do something, and then it's like what you're focusing on. If you say locally sourced, you can have bamboo. If you say if you
locally
say
sourced always up until a certain point, but then where is it not locally sourced? So
exactly. And you will always find with textiles, since you don't need to provide any transparency, it always comes to your, as I'm speaking sort of as a defense lawyer for the textile industry, that becomes your advantage, because you don't have to declare these things. Then nobody knows where it's made. And you can also be as you can try everything, and then still you don't have to declare everything, so you can kind of highlight the things that you want to highlight and hide the things that you don't want to, and then it becomes very that's a very slippery slope to actually doing greenwashing.
Yeah.
And we also see this with what we are doing, is that we just sometimes have to go back. Hey, can we really say this, or is this now just, and then we're okay, no, we're not going to say this anymore, this is not good.
Yeah, here in Canada, we have a lot of red tape, when, so to speak, when it comes to making claims on products. So, for example, when I was making my own natural bath and body products, I started with a baby butt rash balm, right? And I couldn't say that it was a baby butt rash balm. I couldn't claim that it would cure anything. Just said it, I could only say it may help with, or it may contribute to the healing of, or, unless it was tested, unless it had a natural health product number, and it had to go through the steps of a government process, which I did end up doing. But yeah, I mean, there was quite a bit of red tape with the claims that we make, especially on cosmetics. For clothing, though, yeah, never. It's just, where is it made? It's made in Canada, meaning where is it sewn, not where is the fabric made, where is the thread made, how did they make it, but I actually had all the paperwork from the companies where I got the thread, or where my sewer got the thread from, and that it in fact was organic bamboo, and their processes, etc. So I would go back, I would have the trail of the paperwork. But yeah, I don't know if anyone really does that. And I guess the message would be, if you really want to know, you contact the manufacturer and see if they have all that information, right?
The most times they don't know either, because the supply chains and textiles are so long. And what you did, like actually ask yeah, but what you did is that you asked your supplier to show you where their suppliers are, and you send you certificates. That's, most of the clothes that you buy from, we just buy from brands like Levi's. They're mostly brands and not factory owners. And supply chains are very, like textiles are very typical, super globalized product. So that's often they like literally don't know what is in there. And for example, when they do testing and they find, there's this Canadian program, I think, do you have CBS? Was this
we have a CBC, Canadian Broadcasting System.
Yeah, it was a thing, I can send it to you later.
CBC too, which is the British one. Maybe that's on your side of the pond.
It was definitely a Canadian TV show that did with I think the university in Toronto, that they tested products. They tested products that young people buy from these like super cheap, these hyper fast fashion things, and they just tested them for toxicity, and they found so many products that failed these toxicity tests, and that's like, when it comes to little red purses that girls buy, and they're like, this has 20 times the allowed lead amount in the textiles, and the consumer, the professor was like, yeah, this is really, this is really not healthy, like this is really potentially dangerous. But the only thing that happens is that basically companies have to get at max, they would be contacted from consumer protection to just like stop selling this. There's no other punishment than this. And then usually the companies just say like, oh, we didn't know that, that's news to us, thank you. And I think that is a big problem with chemicals and textiles, is that the awareness of it being something that is dangerous, people don't think that much. They're like, I'm not ingesting this, like I'm not but it's not how the body works. Like that's you think about nicotine patches, or a lot of topical medicine will absorb the things in our skin.
Exactly. That's a great point. Yeah, just think of nicotine patches and how your body absorbs it through the skin. Yeah, it's true. I remember, actually, it was kind of interesting. I found that I had a greater audience in the US than I did in Canada when I was making my baby clothes. And at the same time, this was later on when I was also making my bath and body products. And I found it was so difficult. There was so much information they needed to know to ship my clothes to the States, they were mostly interested in the flame retardant chemicals that came with textiles.
Yeah, good.
Their biggest concern. And I had to send in my clothing to be tested with a company that the US government recommended. And if I wanted to do business with anyone in the States, and I had to send my paperwork in saying that it does not contain flame retardant chemicals, and the stitches are within a certain amount apart, certain inches apart, and the circumference of the leg has to be a certain tightness. So if a child's running out of a building and the garment were to catch on fire, that it wouldn't burn from the inside out, it would burn from the outside in, or something like that. It was just this whole really long, like, wow, I can't believe that they're so focused on that. It was all about the fire. So, but then for cosmetics, no problem. What are the ingredients? Here's what they are. Any paperwork? Nope. Like, I was amazed. But to your point, everything does get absorbed through the skin. I mean, at least the States was interested in the flame retardant chemicals. I mean, for one reason.
Yeah, well, but I mean, it is good. I think there was a lawsuit. There was something in the 80s. A lot of mattresses are made. I mean, most of all mattresses are made from synthetic material, and there was
Right.
a lot of things about like mattresses that started to burn, and then children pajama. Because if you think about majority of our clothes are made from polyester, which is plastic, and anybody ever put a lighter to a plastic bag knows what happens with.
Exactly.
So that's why
sorry, I'm saying the flame retardant chemical. It was actually the fabric itself and how the fabric itself burned. Because exactly to what you're saying, the plastic will, mold itself if it's burned, whereas something that's natural wouldn't, and it could stay outside, I guess.
And it's a great example too on like how we build these really complicated kind of house of cards on our products. This is a good example. We start out with like saying, hey, we take polyester fiber because it's really cheap and it's really flexible, and then selling it for 30 years. And then, there's this lawsuit I think in the 70s or 80s, where they just go like, that we have all these like terrible, burn incidences of like, and then, basically realized, well, we're wearing these plastic bags around us, or we're sleeping in plastic bags, and it just burn really well. So companies need to treat things with flame retardants. The problem of flame retardants, they are very similar to an estrogen molecule.
Yeah.
So,
and hormonal thing with it, right?
Yeah, and then it takes, and that's so the 80s. You can just how slow these things are, and now in 2022, I think, after like 40 years of indefutable evidence has been accumulated that these flame retardants are really potent chemicals. They're called endocrine disruptors, where only one molecule entering your body is enough to change your biology. And and this is stuff where every time I'm saying this, I know other people see the tinfoil hat on my head, the tinfoil on my head, and they go like, yeah, I gotta Google this stuff. But this is true, like PFAS, you can look up PFAS. So PFAS are in our bodies, we react to it. And then what they have observed is that they can, for example, bring girls earlier into puberty or reduce the sperm count for men.
Yeah.
And then when they go into the water bodies, like, they're not cleaned out by
the filtration system.
Yeah, they stay in the water and then change the sex of the fish, which reduces fish populations. And there's the study, I probably would need to Google to find it again, but they have found like in really remote places like the Antarctic, that they find like certain animal populations react stronger to this. And there's like they study on like polar bears, and they just realized that these polar bears have become, a lot of them are not fertile anymore. and they tested the water and they find the PFAS in really remote areas, and it makes you really, really go sick in like as to like how we are polluting this planet without any concerns. And what really gets you, or gets me, into disbelief or anger is, now we've made PFAS illegal, and a lot of people go like, finally it's illegal, right? After 40 years of fighting. But we are actually, all the industries, we're using now chemicals that are, where we've changed basically one atom, and now it's not called a PFAS anymore, but it behaves exactly the same as a PFAS, and we can use it now for another, decade or so on.
Right.
And this is a typical case where you can see an issue that we have with the industries. We build up these really complicated products, and we instead of saying, hey, if polyester burns so easily, well, why are we not switching to another material, right? Even if there's all the other issues with polyester as well. It's plastic, it cannot be recycled really well, and so on. But we tend to, we basically tend to look for quick fixes rather than to like, let's go a step back and fix the actual problem.
Band-aid solutions, right? Because it's just easy.
Yeah, the actual problem is that we dress ourselves with plastic. That's the issue.
Exactly. Final thoughts, message to your students, designers?
I would say, go like do stuff, go out there, don't be afraid, make small production. Oh, I also think I always say like, I still think crowdfunding is great to do like a small production run where you don't need money, because that's always a tricky thing when you're 22 years old. It's like, where do I get the money? Like, you right now you can like design your idea, have a design in your head, and then make a video about it, and then put it on Indiegogo. Make sure that all your friends know about it in advance, and maybe you get $5,000 or $10,000 in pre-orders, and then you can make a small production run or something, and then you have done it. Because
Indiegogo or Kickstarter, right? I think there's those two.
Yeah, and there are others now as well, but like that's like, if you have a design idea, and you can even do this without, if you say I can't do videos, then just have a presentation of an idea and go to 50 friends and just tell them like, I want to do this, but you need to pay for it first before I can make it. Like
$10 each.
I don't have the money, I want to make it. But like really, as like, there are students, like, don't think being a study means to sit on your ass and read. Like, that's just one part of it, but you gotta go out and make it and do it and speak with people what you want to do, and then do it.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. It was great chatting with you. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me. Well, I'm just looking at the time. I know you have to head out soon. So, I have a bunch of contact information for you, but just, I guess, for the audience, how can someone contact you or look you up? How can we find you?
You can always go to our customer service. That's customer service is very easy. We like to chat.
Your website is AIZOME-textiles.com. Yeah. Right.
Or also, contact us through social media. Please feel free to reach out. We would always love to like do something with students and universities, and maybe there's some, I don't know, creative ideas. We are very, we don't really pay for advertisement. So funny. We actually won these advertisement prices, but actually we this is more PR. Like we like to talk, that people talk about it without us having to pay for an ad. So anything that creates PR, even if it's just locally, we like to do it.
Yeah, and if you think of anything, I'm always open to suggestions. Like you have my contact info, so anytime, cool. Definitely. It'd be so cool. I love this stuff too, not only for school, but for my own stuff. So yeah, this is great.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for your time too. Have a good one. Good luck. I know you have another meeting, so best of that one.
Thank you.
Take care. Nice to meet you. Bye.
Bye, Jasmine.
Bye.